The night started like a dream come true for thousands of fans. The air was electric, the stage lights were glowing, and the crowd was screaming with excitement as Brandy and Monica walked out together. It was supposed to be one of those nights people would remember for years, a celebration of R and B, sisterhood, and nostalgia. But you won't believe how quickly everything changed. Just as the crowd was singing along to one of Brandy's biggest hits, something felt different. At first, it was subtle. Brandy's smile wasn't as bright, her movement seemed slower, and she was holding the microphone a little lower than usual. Some people thought she was just feeling emotional, but those close to the stage could see the strain on her face. Then, destiny took an unexpected turn. As the song continued, Brandy's breathing grew heavier. She tried to keep singing, but her voice cracked mid-verse. Her hand moved to her chest, and she took a step backward. The band slowed down, unsure of what was happening. Monica, who was standing a few feet away, noticed immediately. She walked closer, whispering something to Brandy, but Brandy barely nodded. The next few seconds felt unreal. Her body swayed slightly. Her face turned pale. And then she stumbled. You could feel the energy shift. The audience, still cheering, didn't realize what was happening until the music stopped. The lights dimmed suddenly, and a silence spread through the entire arena. That's when everyone knew something was wrong. The craziest part was how fast it all happened. 1 minute, she was singing with power and grace, and the next, she was struggling to stay on her feet. Stage crew members rushed forward, and Monica held Brandy by the arm, trying to steady her. You could see the fear in her eyes. Someone backstage yelled for help, and medics appeared out of nowhere. They carefully guided Brandy off the stage as the audience looked on in confusion. At first, some fans thought it was part of the performance, a dramatic act or a planned break. But then Monica, standing alone in the spotlight, raised her hand and asked everyone to stay calm. Her voice trembled as she said, "There has been an unexpected medical situation. Please keep Brandy in your prayers." The entire arena went silent. Outside the stage curtain, chaos broke loose. Medics surrounded Brandy as she sat on a stretcher, her breathing shallow and uneven. Someone shouted to bring oxygen, while another asked if she had eaten before the show. Brandy's face looked pale, her hands were shaking, and she whispered softly that she felt dizzy. One of the medics checked her pulse and looked concerned. "We need to take her now," he said. Within moments, an ambulance was called. Meanwhile, Monica, still in her stage outfit, followed closely behind, her face full of worry. Back inside the arena, fans started filming and posting videos online, asking what had just happened. Did Brandy faint? Is she okay? Why did the show stop? Social media exploded within minutes, with clips and rumors spreading faster than anyone could control. But here is the shocking part. People who were there said it didn't look like just exhaustion. It looked more serious. Brandy seemed disoriented, almost like she was struggling to stay conscious. Her team formed a circle around her, trying to keep cameras away. Monica stood near the ambulance, whispering something to a medic as they lifted Brandy inside. Her expression said it all. This wasn't a minor issue. As the ambulance doors closed, Monica placed her hand on the side and bowed her head for a moment as if she was praying. Fans outside the venue started chanting Brandy's name, hoping for good news. Inside the ambulance, things were tense. Brandy was strapped to a stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face. The paramedics asked if she had any history of health issues, but her voice was too weak to respond. One of them said her blood pressure's dropping. They began monitoring her vitals as the sirens echoed through the city streets. Back at the venue, people were crying, calling friends, and posting messages of concern. The night that was supposed to bring joy had turned into something no one expected. And this is where it gets interesting, because what happened that night might not have been a sudden breakdown at all. It might have been building up for weeks, maybe even months. As the ambulance sped through the city streets, sirens cutting through the night air, no one inside spoke a word. The paramedics worked quickly, checking Brandy's pulse, adjusting her oxygen mask, and trying to stabilize her breathing. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, but she looked weak and confused, whispering something too faint to hear. Monica sat beside her, holding her hand, tears welling up as she whispered softly, "You're okay, Brandy. Just breathe." The tension inside that small space was thick. Even the paramedics trained for emergencies looked worried. You won't believe this, but one of them later said her heart rate was unstable, a sign that her body had reached its breaking point. Back at the venue, chaos had turned into panic. Fans stood outside trying to get updates. Security struggled to manage the growing crowd, while inside, Brandy's team huddled together, phones buzzing nonstop. One crew member said quietly, "She's been pushing too hard." Another added, "We told her to rest, but she wouldn't listen." It was clear now, this wasn't just a random collapse. This was the result of something much deeper, something that had been building for weeks. And the craziest part, those closest to her saw it coming. In the days leading up to the concert, Brandy's schedule was packed. Rehearsals, interviews, meet and greets, endless travel, barely any sleep. Her social media showed nothing but smiles, laughter, and stunning photos. But behind those perfect moments, there was exhaustion, stress, and silence. According to one insider, Brandy had been feeling dizzy and tired for days. She brushed it off, saying she was fine, that she just needed coffee or a short nap. She didn't want to let anyone down, the insider said. She wanted to prove she was still unstoppable. But here is the shocking part. She had been warned by doctors earlier that month to slow down. They told her that her body needed rest. Yet, she kept going. You see, Brandy wasn't just performing. She was carrying the weight of expectations, fame, and years of pressure. Everyone wanted a piece of her, fans, managers, media, promoters. And this is where it gets interesting. The tour wasn't just a comeback. It was meant to show the world that Brandy still had that magic, that she could stand shoulder to shoulder with Monica and relive the legacy of The Boy Is Mine. But what makes this story different is that behind that powerful stage presence was a woman silently battling exhaustion and anxiety, afraid to appear weak. When the ambulance reached the hospital, doctors were already waiting. They moved quickly, connecting monitors, inserting IVs, checking her vitals. Monica stayed by the door, watching helplessly as doctors surrounded Brandy. Nurses asked questions. Had she eaten? Was she on medication? Had she complained of chest pain? Her manager answered through tears, "She's been working nonstop." "She barely rests." The doctor's expression turned serious. "Then she's lucky she got here in time," he said quietly. Meanwhile, news had already reached social media. Hashtags like hashtag pray for Brandy and hashtag Brandy hospitalized started trending within an hour. Fans were posting emotional messages, sharing clips from the concert, and sending prayers. Celebrities joined in too, tweeting their support. But here's where it got even more intense. A few industry insiders began whispering that this might not just be exhaustion. Some believed that Brandy had been under incredible emotional strain due to behind-the-scenes issues, including tension within her team and the pressure of performing alongside Monica again after years of media-fueled comparisons. At the hospital, as tests continued, Monica paced the hallway, wiping her tears. She kept asking nurses for updates, but there were no answers yet. The longer she waited, the heavier the silence became. She finally sat down, holding her phone tightly, scrolling through hundreds of messages from fans. Every post, every prayer made her more emotional. She whispered to herself, "They love her so much. She has to be okay." But deep down, she was scared. Scared that this night might change everything. And she wasn't wrong, because that night wasn't just another medical emergency. It was the moment that would make everyone, fans, friends, and even Brandy herself, question how much pressure one person can take before everything falls apart. The truth about what led to that breakdown was just beginning to unfold, and you won't believe the details that were about to come to light. The hospital room was quiet, except for the beeping of machines and the low hum of voices outside the door. Brandy was resting, her face pale under the harsh fluorescent light, while doctors moved carefully around her, monitoring every small change. Monica sat in the corner, her head in her hands, whispering short prayers. Hours passed before a doctor finally entered the waiting area, his expression serious but calm. "She's stable for now," he said, "but her body is completely exhausted. She needs rest, not days, but weeks." Everyone in the room let out a sigh of relief, but it was mixed with guilt. They all knew this had been coming. The signs were there, and they had ignored them. Let me tell you, what happened next revealed more than anyone expected. When Brandy's team began talking among themselves, old conversations resurfaced. Moments when Brandy had complained about fatigue, dizziness, and stress. Her makeup artist recalled how she once had to sit down during a rehearsal because the room was spinning. Her manager mentioned how she hadn't been eating properly, living off caffeine and protein bars. "She just kept saying she was fine," he whispered. But here's the shocking part. A few people close to her admitted they had begged her to cancel a few shows. They told her to slow down, but she refused, saying, "I can't let them down again." That sentence echoed in everyone's mind because now it made painful sense. This is where it gets interesting. Rumors began spreading, not just about her health, but about what was really going on behind the scenes. Some insiders whispered about creative disagreements within her team, last-minute changes to tour plans, and the constant comparison between her and Monica. Even though the two had publicly shown love and unity, people speculated that the pressure to perform together perfectly after years of rivalry gossip had weighed heavily on Brandy. One insider said she wanted everything to be perfect, not just for herself, but for Monica too. She felt the world was watching their every move. The pressure, both emotional and physical, was simply too much. As hours turned into morning, Brandy slowly regained consciousness. Monica was right beside her when she opened her eyes. Brandy looked confused at first, then weakly asked, "Did the show end?" Monica nodded, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "You scared everyone." Brandy blinked back tears and softly said, "I didn't want to let anyone down." That one line broke Monica completely. She held Brandy's hand and said, "You're more important than any show." In that quiet hospital room, the truth became clear. This wasn't about fame or music anymore. It was about survival. Doctors returned with more updates. They explained that Brandy had suffered from severe exhaustion and dehydration, possibly made worse by stress and lack of sleep. Her blood sugar levels were dangerously low, and her blood pressure had dropped sharply during the performance. Her body gave every warning sign possible, one doctor said, but she didn't stop. The manager asked nervously, "Will she recover fully?" The doctor nodded, but added firmly, "Only if she rests and listens this time. If she keeps pushing, it will happen again, and next time could be worse." The room went silent. No one dared to say a word after that. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, hundreds of fans had gathered. Some held posters, some prayed out loud, others simply stood there in shock, refreshing their phones for updates. Social media was in chaos. Supporters flooded timelines with messages of love, while a few critics questioned why artists were being pushed so hard just to keep up with expectations. But the craziest part, even with everything happening, some promoters were still calling Brandy's manager, asking if future shows would be canceled. It showed how brutal the industry could be, caring more about business than health. Inside, Monica stayed by Brandy's side, refusing to leave. She called Brandy's mother, who arrived later that morning, holding her daughter's hand and whispering prayers. The scene was heartbreaking. A mother, a friend, and a legend, all caught in one fragile moment. Brandy was awake but quiet, her eyes tired yet filled with emotion. She looked at Monica and said softly, "I just wanted to give them my best." Monica replied, "You already did. Now it's time to give yourself a chance to heal." It was a small conversation, but it carried a heavy truth. Brandy had spent years giving everything to her career, and that night, her body had finally asked for something back: rest. As the day went on, doctors ordered more tests and advised her team to cancel all immediate appearances. Her manager, torn between responsibility and loyalty, stepped into the hallway to make a difficult call. "Cancel everything," he said quietly. "We can't risk her life for a schedule." And that decision marked the beginning of a new chapter. Just as things began to calm down at the hospital, destiny took an unexpected turn. Later that evening, as Brandy rested, her doctor walked into the room with a concerned look. He carried a file in his hand, new test results. Everyone tensed up instantly. "There's something we need to discuss," he said. Monica stood up. Brandy's mother gripped her daughter's hand tighter, and the manager's face went pale. The doctor explained that Brandy's exhaustion wasn't just from overwork. Her body had been showing signs of extreme stress for a while. If this had gone on even one more week, he said gravely, it could have led to a complete collapse of her system. You won't believe it, but that was the moment Brandy realized how close she'd come to losing everything, not her career, but her life. For a while, no one spoke. Brandy stared blankly at the ceiling, the doctor's words echoing in her mind. "I thought I could handle it," she whispered. Monica squeezed her hand gently and replied, "You don't have to handle everything alone." Tears rolled down Brandy's cheeks. She wasn't crying out of pain, but out of realization. The life she had built, the fame she fought for, had almost cost her everything. But here's the shocking part. Even after all this, some members of her management team quietly debated whether to release an official statement downplaying the situation, afraid of how it might affect upcoming deals. That conversation reached Monica, and she was furious. She confronted them directly, saying, "You're talking about business while she's fighting to get better? Enough is enough." This is where it gets interesting. Within 24 hours, the story went from a rumor to national news. Major outlets began covering Brandy's hospitalization, dissecting every detail, and replaying the concert footage again and again. Headlines read, "Brandy collapses on stage, fans in shock." The public outpouring of love was enormous. Celebrities like Missy Elliott, Kelly Rowland, and even Monica's family posted heartfelt messages. Yet, what made this story different was how it sparked a conversation far beyond one artist's health. It exposed the silent pressure inside the music industry. Fans began talking about how artists were pushed beyond limits, hiding pain behind flawless performances. Inside that hospital room, something changed within Brandy too. She began reflecting on her life, the endless rehearsals, sleepless nights, fake smiles, and the constant battle to stay relevant in an industry that never stopped demanding. "I forgot what peace felt like," she said softly one morning. Monica smiled and replied, "Then maybe this is your moment to find it again." From that point, Brandy made a quiet promise to herself to heal, to rest, and to take control of her life again. And for the first time in years, she truly meant it. After a few days, doctors finally cleared her for discharge, but under one strict condition, she was not to return to performing for several months. The media stood outside the hospital as she left, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, waving weakly to her fans. She didn't say a word, but that small wave said everything. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a promise to return, stronger and wiser. Back home, Brandy began focusing on her recovery. She spent time with her daughter, meditated, and even started therapy to deal with the mental exhaustion that had gone unnoticed for years. Monica visited often, bringing laughter and warmth. Together, they talked about life, faith, and friendship, not fame. Brandy once said during a quiet moment, "Maybe God slowed me down to remind me that I'm human." And that line summed up everything she had gone through. But the craziest part, when Brandy finally reappeared online weeks later, She didn't post a glamorous picture or a polished music teaser. Instead, she shared a simple photo, her sitting by a window, smiling faintly, with the caption, "I'm still here, still healing, and still grateful." The post went viral instantly. Thousands of comments poured in, messages of love, support, and admiration. People weren't just celebrating a comeback, they were celebrating survival. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a superstar collapsing on stage. It was about how pressure, fame, and expectation can push even the strongest to their limits, and how sometimes falling isn't failure but a chance to rise differently. Brandy's collapse became a reminder to everyone watching that behind every spotlight, there's a person, and sometimes that person just needs to breathe. And that, right there, was the moment Brandy's story shifted. Not from tragedy to triumph, but from pain to purpose.